Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
So, Diddy defense is raising an interesting series of points that all seem to go to try, I don't want to even use the word justify, but to explain some of the brutality Cassie suffered at Diddy's hands.
And one of those possibilities for an explanation is bipolar disorder, because Diddy's own defense attorney raised this while questioning Cassie this morning, and infers that there has been a diagnosis, though that's never affirmed by anything Cassie says or the attorney. So
it's going to be interesting because
reference.
Diddy's not going to take the stand. So then the question is, how are they going to get that out there?
Right.
So that's kind of interesting in itself.
So Anna Esteval was questioning Cassie about her meetings with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and makes a reference, says, didn't you tell them that you thought it might have been his bipolar disorder? She's talking about in 2018, they went out to dinner. Remember, they were broken up already.
Right.
She was seeing Alex Fine. She and Diddy go out to dinner, and then she claims that after that dinner, Diddy raped her. So
Came to her house and raped her.
Right. So his attorney is now asking her about that whole event, and says, you told the U.S. Attorney's Office that it might be his bipolar disorder.
So she's clearly raised that, or they've raised that flag.
Right.
They raised something else.
By the way, Cassie's response to that was, I don't recall saying that exactly.
Now, they raised something else, though, that when they were talking about the 2016 beating, which now everybody has seen on that surveillance video, they raised an issue asking her whether he was in the middle of a blackout.
Yeah.
And it really is kind of the same thing they're doing, which is to explain brutality. Right. I mean, I don't know how else.
And I don't know how that's
that.
gonna.
I don't know how that's gonna go either.
Right.
I mean, I think they're, it's like sometimes if it goes so far when you see in this video that you say
You try make any attempt to explain it, it's gonna could rub a juror the wrong way. That
absolutely.
How dare they?
How dare they? And because a lot of people thought that what the defense should be doing is being harder on Diddy than the prosecution was.
Right.
And to own that, and to, and not to try and make an excuse. This is kind of an excuse.
Well, I think it's part of a two-pronged attack. A lot of the testimony is about trying to show that Cassie was participating consensually. The other prong is Diddy was not in his right state of mind. I think you're 100% right, though, by even raising these issues of his mental fitness at a particular point in time. That dog doesn't hunt over an 11-year relationship filled with violence. It may work for one instance. The 2018 episode, if it's a manic episode where he's raping her and he had never raped her before, maybe that's helpful to him, but I just don't think it works over the course of an 11-year relationship.
Except the other way they're kind of attacking it, which they did today, which I found kind of interesting. They played an audio tape that somebody had threatened to release a sexually explicit video of Cassie.
That she was speaking to, yes, and she was, in this audio, you hear her threatening the person.
I will kill you. I will blank you up, essentially. And, what they're trying to show is that they were both violent. That there was violence going both ways. Again, I don't know how that is going to fly with the jury, but that's clearly why they're bringing that up. They're trying to show she's not just under his
shrinking
spell.
violent under his spell, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but the cognitive dissonance of the jury being able to look at that video of her not defending herself, not fighting Diddy in that hotel room is going to be a tough thing to overcome.
And that's interesting because she addressed the aftermath of that video on the stand.
There were text messages shown in court, read aloud. These were just a few days after the hotel beating, and Cassie texted him, when you get blanked up the wrong way, you always want to show me that you have the power, and you knock me around. I'm not a rag doll. I'm someone's child.
That's powerful. That is really
powerful.
That is really powerful. And it was her, this was not her saying, well, that's kind of our relationship.
But if you're wondering why the defense would bring it up, right after that, it seems like they make up. The text messages now, after she says that, have a more lighthearted tone where he says, let's just forget about Friday. and has an LOL in there, and then she responds with an LOL, and it seems like everything's hunky-dory again. And that's why the defense really brought this up to show, yes.
Do you think that works? Do you think that works to say, okay?
I personally don't, but I think they are basically throwing out every theory possible so that the jurors have that in there. They only need one juror to have it in his or her head.
But you can't do a kitchen sink defense. You have to have a narrative. And I thought at the beginning their narrative was clear, that this was a mutually violent relationship where they were both swingers, that they were both into freak-offs and everything else. And you go down a lane and you make that point. Now it's like, well, you felt like a rag doll the day after, but then you made up. Well, that's what happens to domestic violence victims, that they react, and then the other person says, oh, don't leave me, I love you, and then they stay, and then it happens again.
And you would think...
I mean, I don't know where this gets to the defense, honestly. It just seems to me, honestly, it sounds like a basic misstep to me.
Well, if they we'll see what happens when prosecutors redirect. I would imagine that's what they're going to bring up.
The prosecutors just begun their redirect a few minutes ago, and one of the first things they said was, you've been shown a lot of text messages and been forced to read all these loving and kind text messages to each other. Did that always, did that last very long? And Cassie was like, no, there would immediately be a downward swing. And whether that was because of Diddy's bipolar disorder or his drug addiction, because we learned that he had overdosed at one point in 2012. This is just a classic narcissistic abusive relationship on both parts, but it makes sense. It's kind of like classic for an abusive, for her to react that way, go back and forth.
I mean, that's classic domestic violence, that somebody beats somebody and that person who's beaten says, might even say, I'm going to leave, and the other person says, oh, no, I love you, don't leave, and then they stay, and then it happens again.
Right.
And that's what, I mean, By the way, Janet just said that they're doing redirect right now, and one of the reasons is the clock is ticking, and I'm not just talking about the courtroom clock.
Cassie has to get out of that courtroom. Prosecutors made a big deal early this morning saying to the judge, we need to stick to the schedule, which was that Cassie would only be here through Friday. They're concerned, the prosecutor's office, is that she's going to go into labor. Not necessarily in court, but if she goes into court while she still goes into labor while she still needs to finish testimony, like maybe this weekend.
Exactly, and another thing that might come into play here is that we've heard from our producer who's inside the courtroom that everybody in that courtroom is sick. The defense attorney that was cross-examining Cassie sounded like she had bronchitis or something, like lots of mucus. A lot of the jurors were coughing, so that could potentially put her at, such a risk because she's pregnant.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting, Janet. I didn't know that. And that, by the way, that could also stop the trial if a juror gets sick and can't come to work.
Right.
And can't come. They may recess for a couple of days. But what they said yesterday, our producer Brian is in the courtroom, is that they said that they were concerned that Cassie's due date is such that she could go into labor as early as this weekend. So,
Is there a world, I know you said there's no way that they would ever declare mistrial, but in the extreme case, she did go into labor today on the stand. Isn't there an argument that that is very prejudicial against Diddy?
No.
What
does it have to do with anything?
That sitting there reliving all of this has made you go into labor?
No. It is not a mistrial.
Charles, let us just handle this one. That's not a mistrial. but good effort. I appreciate it, like a student in a class.
I don't need him to be patronizing.
We're not patronizing.
No,
it's not a prejudice. I know what you're saying, but the fact that she's pregnant is, you could say, prejudicial, right? I mean, that she's coming into court this way. You could make that.
You can't avoid.
Well, then
that.
what's the difference? I mean, the natural end of it is having the baby.
Is that she's going to have the baby at some point, but she has it, I don't know, weeks early.
She was due. I mean, she's
not due.
She's due at the end of the month, they say. So come on.
Hi, my name's Buddy Pearson. I'm coming to you from Austin, Texas. I agree. I think that the team is trying to throw everything they can because they know that this is a sinking ship. It doesn't seem to be working. I think that they're doing literally anything to try to grasp at straws. It doesn't justify what he did, whether he is a bipolar or not, or whether he was blacked out. I just think that they know that the ship is going down. As far as her being pregnant, I think that her team is trying to get her off the stand because she said a lot of things that, depending on the interpretation, could almost make it seem like she was, going back and consenting, even though I think with the body of evidence that we have, that's probably not the case. But I think that they want her off the stand. Obviously, she looks like she's about to pop, but I think that they're trying to get her from ruining part of this argument, definitely. This whole thing is so crazy and ever evolving.
So we have a weekly show now for the duration of the trial called TMZ Presents United States versus Sean Combs Inside the Diddy Trial. It is available for free on Tubi. We drop it every Thursday night.
Yep,
update it
every week.
And we have boy, you should see Nancy Grace and Mark Garagos go at it. Woo! It is something. Okay, we're taking a break.
When we come back, the long-standing rumor about Diddy and Justin Bieber. It has raised its head again, and now we are finally getting some answers from people in Diddy's world about these videos, these old videos of them hanging out when Bieber was first coming up in the business. Well, Justin Bieber and Sean Diddy Combs. There are some videos that have been, for months now, resurfaced, I guess is the word people use, on the internet. Videos that seemed really strange. Early in Justin's career, when he was
15.
Still,
He was 15.
15 years old, and them hanging out, and the intimation has been that there was some sort of abuse.
Well, remember, what Diddy said was, Justin and I are going to go buck wild for 48 hours. And another time on Jimmy Kimmel's show, he said that I gave Justin keys to a Lambo, but I told him that he can never talk about what goes on inside my house. And now that all of these charges have been filed and the civil lawsuits have been filed, people are trying to connect the dots. And it's all over social media, people saying that they just feel like Justin was a victim of Diddy's.
That is not the case, according to multiple people in Justin's world, that it didn't happen that way. That's not people who were around when those things were happening.
Yeah, obviously been working on this story for a really long time, talking to people who were close to Justin at this, currently, as well as back in the day when all this, when he was interacting with Diddy. And essentially what we were told from sources is that basically him and Diddy's relationship was very performative. It wasn't like they had any type of close relationship, that Justin was never a victim of Diddy or, abused by Diddy in any way. And actually, Justin, he knew Diddy's kids and was friends with them, but was not like friends with Diddy. He never hung out with Diddy.
So this is interesting. So Charlie in our office and I worked on this and talked to a lot of people, and people who were in Justin's life who are now no longer in it, and people who are currently in it as well. And they were all telling us the same thing, exactly what Devin just said, that this was a performative kind of a thing and that he was just buddies with Diddy's kids. We called Justin's people up, and initially they said, we're just not going to comment. And then they called us back, which I found interesting.
Right. They called us back with a statement on the record, essentially saying the same thing, that there was never any abuse,
misconduct.
No misconduct of any sort. And these are just old videos that people are looking at now with different context, but they're not, what they think they're seeing is not what happened.
But in the statement, though, it also says it makes sense now because this is, like you guys have been saying, has been brewing on social media, and everyone thinks, Justin's spiraling. Does it have something to do with the Diddy trial going on? Was he abused? And essentially, they said in the statement, they never said anything because they didn't want to distract from the real victims of Sean Combs. So
right, but they did come out, before we posted the story and we put that in, that they say it just didn't happen. By the way, we're talking about Justin Bieber's mental struggles and all. This is part of our documentary, which is now on Hulu. It's called TMZ Investigates What Happened to Justin Bieber. You can stream it now on Hulu. And we get into not just the mental health issues, but marriage and money and church and loyalties. So it's pretty comprehensive.
Hi, my name is Alicia Scott from Chicago, Illinois. And as for the Justin Bieber versus Diddy case, I think him being around Diddy at such a young age, especially spending days on end together, was strange. Diddy was well in his age, and Justin Bieber was only around 15. And the only thing a grown man could want, in my opinion, from a 15-year-old is like a son-father relationship or something disturbing. And when thinking back, Diddy already had 2 sons, so why was he so interested in Justin Bieber?
Well, they say it's because he was famous, and they were both famous, and this, as they put it, was performative.
Right.
So,
Publicity.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, we are going to move on to another singer.
To another who is not going to be on a stage anytime soon. Chris Brown has been formally charged over in the UK for this nightclub attack. And that
Throwing a bottle.
We expected that, yes. That he'd thrown a bottle back in 2023 at a record exec. They were both in this nightclub. The shocking part, we expected him to be charged. They have held him without bail. So he was in court this morning expecting, hoping, I'm sure, that he was going to be released on bail. They said absolutely not. He is going to be behind bars at this point until his next court date, which is mid-June some point.
And you got to wonder,
June 13th.
and you got to wonder if the trial isn't imminent. If there's just a hearing and then there's going to be a trial, will they let him out then? And I'm stunned at this too. That I guess they're saying he's a flight risk and he'd probably leave the country,
Right.
and then they couldn't get him
He
again.
does have the means.
Because they're not going to extradite him for throwing a bottle. So they got him, and they want to keep him, but he could be incarcerated for a long time, even before trial.
And he does have a tour that is scheduled to begin later this summer, I believe. So
I got to tell you, I'm absolutely stunned by this. I mean, obviously, the UK system does not work as ours does, but to keep somebody incarcerated for a month pending a hearing for
over throwing a bottle,
a relatively minor crime is really odd to me. Now, obviously, he is a flight risk. He owns a passport that is not UK. He could leave presumably at any time, but there are ways to prevent against that. I am stunned by this.
I am too. You remove his passport.
and if he has a tour coming up, now they're gonna end up costing him money, which if this thing doesn't stick, then he's gonna want someone to pay for that.
Yeah, but you're not going to go to the government of England and say, give us the money. I mean, he's going to be screwed.
Yeah.
Hi, you guys. I'm Naresh. I'm from Orlando, Florida. And I mean, how many chances does Chris Brown get? At this point, it's just exhausting. You want to root for him. He's got the talent. He's got the legacy. But every time he takes one step forward, he's always 2 clubs back. Like, bro, you're in London smashing bottles in a nightclub. It's giving self-sabotage at this point. Like, grow up.
I hear you saying, although it was 2 years ago and he never knew there was a criminal
There was a
investigation. There was a lawsuit.
Wow. Okay, we're taking a break.
All right, when we come back, Bill Belichick comes out swinging for his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson. She's been getting bashed in the media by fans, his own fans, even some of his family members. So what does he have to say about it? And was she behind what he said? When we come back.
TMZ's got every freaking thing. Big celebs, big stories, big events.
Justin Timberlake made Portland kids' dream come true by joining a bike bus ride. And they always listen to Justin Timberlake.
Cry me a river when they fall. Yeah, right.
It's TMZ.
Bill Belichick was on GMA this morning and talking to Michael Strahan. When I first saw the clip, I thought, well, Jordan Hudson is probably sitting right off to the side.
Next question.
Right, and sort of trying to control the interview. This one's a little different because it's live on GMA, right? So it would be harder for her to do that.
She wasn't there.
She wasn't there, according to Bill Belichick. But she did come up, and it was clear that Bill was there to sell his book. But
by the way, and this is going to help him sell his book too.
And he knows that. And it's clear that aside from the book, he did want to be very supportive of his girlfriend.
A lot has been made about your relationship with Jordan Hudson. It's been getting a lot of attention. She isn't here this morning, but what do you think about all the attention that your relationship has been getting?
Yeah, well, she's been terrific, through the whole process, and she's been very helpful to me. She does the business things that don't relate to North Carolina that come up in my life, so I can concentrate on football, and that's really what I want to do.
So what did Jordan mean to you?
Well, we have a good personal relationship, and I'm not talking about personal relationships, Michael. You know that.
Okay, I know that, Coach. But I'm saying, are you happy?
Yeah.
You look happy.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd see you doing yoga. Only happy people do yoga, Coach. Only happy people do yoga.
Okay, before we get into
awkward.
No. Before we get into Belichick, I love this when network anchors do this because they all don't want to go into the gossip part. But how do we get this in? And I love the way they try to craft it as if they're not doing it. I thought that was hysterical.
It's so true. And people wondered, or were going to wonder, if she was there after what happened with CBS. And Michael, the way he sort of, slipped that in, that she's not there.
He didn't exactly slip it in. He wedged it in.
Absolutely said it because he knew that that's what everyone was thinking.
Of course.
Right. Bill saying that,
I love, by the way, I love Strahan saying, she's not here.
Right.
I mean, we know the code.
So go ahead. You can say whatever you want. But correct me if I'm wrong. I heard Belichick basically making a reference to Jordan cutting off his last interview because he said, we're not going to talk about that.
Right.
Because that's what the question she cut off with CBS.
I've been schooled on that.
Right. He goes, I'm not going to talk about my personal relationship. Come on.
I do think it's so funny that at first I thought they're so annoyed by this, but I think they realize this is going to move books.
If not for Jordan, he's incredible. He might be the best coach ever, but he's a boring person.
And that's why you're trying to figure out what's going on here. And it makes it even better. You know what I mean? It actually makes it.
Lean into it.
Lean
into the wind.
Like a yoga move.
We need a reality. That's what I want. I want a reality show. Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson.
My name is Brianna, and I'm from Ventura County. Bill and Jordan have an age gap that spans decades, and while it is a strange dynamic, everyone involved is an adult. It sounds like Bill is happy, and it's good to see him speaking out to confirm his well-being. There were concerns about his level of autonomy, basically.
Can we go back to the yoga picture just for a second? It's the most awesome picture I've seen in months.
Does that count as doing yoga? I mean, I guess he's definitely stretching.
I mean,
it seems more like she's stretching. Anyway.
I just think that is an amazing picture. We are going to take a break.
When we come back, the investigation into former FBI Director James Comey, the Department of Justice, digging into a post he put up with the numbers 8647. Was it about assassinating 47th president? A lot of people in government think it is. We're going to be joined by one of them, Congressman Randy Fine, on why this is not corruption. This is a necessary investigation. Former FBI Director James Comey's walk on the beach, simple walk on the beach, is now led to a Justice Department investigation. And it's all over these shells that Comey says he saw as he was walking down the beach. And they're spelled out into the numbers 8647, which now you go, why does that require an investigation? The way it's been interpreted is a possible signal or threat to assassinate.
They're saying 86 means kill. They're saying 86 means kill, and Trump is the 47th president. So what Trump and others say is that is a message, kill President Trump. Here's what President Trump said today.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, they like what's happening with our country.
What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this, he's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision.
So they are launching a criminal investigation into...
You refer to Attorney General Pam Bondi.
into James Comey, and it is being echoed by lots of people in Congress.
But there are a lot of people who think this is ridiculous because that is a stretch of the interpretation of 86. Joining us right now to enter the debate is Congressman Randy Fine, U.S. Representative from Florida. Congressman, welcome to TMZ Live.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So, what say you? I mean, because look, 86 was, I think it was a restaurant term initially, which is throw somebody out of the restaurant. And you could argue that 86 means throw him out of office, impeach him, do something. But how do you view it?
Well, look, I think he should know better. Look, the guy tried to take Trump out through lawfare when he was FBI director. They've tried to take him out. This is someone that's almost been assassinated twice. And so I think you have to be careful in the language that you use. And he's the duly elected president of the United States, whether they like it or not, and saying, like, take him out. I mean, that's not language that people should be using in any event. But certainly in this case, I think he knew exactly what he meant. And it's just another call after 2 assassination attempts last year to try to take out President Trump. I hope he's held accountable.
Isn't it? I mean, 86. Remove is the word that first comes to mind.
Restaurant
right?
specials.
In whatever it is you want. I mean,
no, they do. They use that for restaurants.
Yes, I know they use it for restaurant specials. We have colloquially written it in our post where we say 86
all the time.
I saw a post, Matt Gaetz, a very close friend of the president's, used it in an old tweet where he said, we've 86'd McCarthy, McDaniel, McConnell. So was he talking about assassinating them? Of course not. Of course not.
They weren't. They weren't. But I will say this. They aren't the former director of the FBI. Someone who should be very cautious and cognizant of his language.
He wanted him to be.
right.
Well, the Attorney General.
Attorney General, right. But Matt, my point is, there's another example of even someone who's a friend of the president using 86 in the term of just removal. It's
throw the bums out.
It seems like a stretch to go to assassination. No?
I don't think so, but I also think the whole post itself is weird. He's walking down the beach and he sees these shells and this random assortment and he's going to put it online. I mean, give me a break.
I don't think it's a random assortment. I mean, whoever did it clearly is not a fan of President Trump and would like to see him removed from office.
Well, it was probably Comey himself.
Could have been.
I think that the guy has made clear, and I think in a world in which we have a president who was literally shot in the head when he was running for office.
Congressman, does that mean that we cannot, no one's supposed to be critical of the president anymore? No one can say that he's done something that I think for which he should be impeached? You can't say that?
You can, but that's not what he said. He should say that's what he should have said.
Yeah.
Democrats tried to do that this week, and we had to waste a bunch of time on some nonsense where even they came to their senses and said we shouldn't actually impeach him.
My big issue is what I'm hearing right now is that you're going to criminally investigate somebody for basically opposition. And that's the way I'm feeling, because I know what 86 means, and it doesn't mean assassination. He's not doing that. But what it will do is it's going to scare people into silence, into not criticizing the government. And that is the root of democracy, whether you support Trump or don't. If we start feeling inhibited about criticizing our leaders, we've lost our democracy. And I'm scared to death of that because that's what I'm feeling right now.
Look, I've been in Congress for about 6 weeks, and I see no hesitation for people to criticize the president. But I do think the language that we use matters, particularly in a world where last year 2 people were inspired to try to kill Donald Trump. And I think when you see language like this from the former head of law enforcement in the United States, people need to take that seriously. If someone wants to impeach Donald Trump, they should just say that. If they want to elect Democrats, they should say that. But the coded, cutesy language isn't helpful.
Congressman, you know what's kind of interesting?
Sure.
I'm thinking back to January 6th, and there are a lot of people who feel that Trump was treated unfairly, that he wasn't really calling for an insurrection, even though he said, go down to the Capitol and make your point, and people were screaming, hang Mike Pence, and he didn't stop them. But a lot of people are saying, look, that was just his political view. That could be interpreted easily as kill somebody. Right.
And by the way, the Democrats impeached him because they thought that's what he meant. And by the way, they impeached him for doing that without giving the full comments that he made at the time, where he said, go to the Capitol and be peaceful, which many of those people chose not to be. So clearly language that can be interpreted in certain ways. When you're on the left, you're allowed to go crazy. When you're on the left, you're allowed to criminalize.
You opposed that, yet you support a prosecution here.
Well, I opposed impeachment because that's not what the president actually said. I support an investigation. I think what this guy did is dangerous, and I think the world has changed when crazy people see these things and then they go and take action.
So our speech needs to be calibrated to the craziest person on earth.
That's not true. I think the former director of the FBI's speech should be calibrated, not you. No, we're regular citizens. But I think people in those sorts of positions of authority have to be careful. And by the way, look at what we went through. Elon Musk makes a goofy hand gesture, and people go on for weeks and months, and he's giving the Nazi salute. I mean, it's okay when the left wants to criticize the right.
That one, it felt like a Nazi salute to me. So
that one seemed less debatable.
Felt like a Nazi salute to me.
It wasn't. I was there, and I'm Jewish, and it certainly wasn't those things. But
I'm Jewish too. It did to me.
Yeah, well,
we're not having a competition, gentlemen. We're not having a competition.
Look, we get it, and we appreciate you coming on because obviously there are people who share your view on this.
Absolutely. There's an investigation because of it. So,
just so you know, I use 86 a lot, but never that way, promise.
Well, you're not the head of the FBI, so I think it's all right.
Fair enough.
We can all celebrate that. Thank you so much, Congressman.
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You as director of the FBI. Oh, gosh.
Stop it. Okay, we are going to take a break.
All right, when we come back, you're paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year for college. What if your professor is using AI? Are you getting ripped off? There is at least one student who's making a big stink about this. We're going to follow her money, in fact, all of your money. If you're a student or you're paying for one, Damon John's going to be here when we come back. We talk a lot about the burden of the cost of higher education now, right? I mean, if you're going to a four-year university, you're paying anywhere from the low end, like $30,000 if it's an in-state school, to hundreds of thousands if you're at an Ivy League.
The way we used to put it back in the day is that when
you paid $500 for like.
Well, no. I'm not talking about me because mine was really cheap, which was shocking. Right. But it's sort of like you're digging a hole of debt to China by the time you get out of school.
Absolutely. So if you're going through all that, maybe you want an actual teacher, not.
This is
AI.
Interesting. This is interesting.
This is a big debate now because a lot of students and clearly their parents, if they are paying as well, are pissed about what happened at Northeastern University, where a student found out that her teacher was using AI to create the lesson plan.
This is the only teacher.
Right. And she's like, I'm paying like $9,000 for this, just for this class, and you can't even participate. What's the point? Does she have a point? Or what difference does it make how you learn it as long as you learn it? Joining us right now to follow your money in higher education is our good buddy Damon John from Shark Tank. Damon, what would you say to paying $9,000 for an AI design class?
You know, these kids, at the end of the day, stop complaining. You know, I was watching Kill Bill the other day, and while the teacher had her working, he was eating noodles. And if she would have said something to him, he would have went, "Cha!" He would have taken her eyeball out. I think that this is what they should be doing. I would be mad if a professor did not use AI and they were not AI proficient, because what they're showing is they know where the real world is going. They're no longer looking at books and various other things that are made by dead people. And right now, all they're doing is really correcting the curriculums or maybe structuring them the right way. But you know, Harvard, I gotta give you an example. You know, if I had a professor that I really debated on a lot of their theory, now they can be more up to date on what is going on. There's a lot of new information going on in history and in teaching. I'm paying for the professor's experience of 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And if honestly, if information is getting easier to acquire, well, then what are we paying for? Let me pay for more of the professor's experience and things of that nature.
I think going to college ain't nearly as important now because of AI as it used to be. I hire people, and I am not looking at college degrees as much as I'm trying to look behind it of how smart
but
are
Harvey,
they.
you know that
No, but hold
depending
on.
on the job, you do
I got
want
it.
someone who has
I don't care about it.
a well-rounded
So let me-
knowledge of things.
Let me give you my take. And here's where I think it's going. If I were 17 and I thought, am I going to go into debt like this, or do I have like an entrepreneurial, skill? What I might do is take a year or two and just use AI to learn. That I don't need a professor. I can get what he's going to say.
So now you don't need higher education
Just
at
what
all.
I'm saying.
You just
What I'm saying is I can self-teach. Hold on, just hear me for a second. I can Steve Jobs didn't finish college. I can self-teach myself. I can become as affluent as anybody who graduates college.
This is
I'm not
reckless.
going to be in debt.
This is reckless.
It's not reckless.
And it's reckless to hold up Steve Jobs as Steve Jobs is an outlier of outliers.
He was
right?
an outlier before AI, and I think AI
but now
levels the
people,
field. I think it levels
you can
the
just
field.
stay at home and teach yourself using.
I believe
search.
it.
What?
I believe it.
I think you need. I think we have both, right? We're already talking about if we're talking about a debt thing. We already said that going for a trade is probably better. But if we're talking about experience, where are we talking about going? All right, we talking about if you're going to be a doctor, or we're talking about if you're going to be a biologist. You probably need to be around professors and like-minded people because no matter what you learn at home, you got to go out to the real field to execute this. Now, if they are using AI to correct various things and other things, I do think the professors are going to be more proficient. I think that, yes, we need to pay for our children for the professors to have a different form of engagement with our children because you know what's going to happen is you can't take away the human interaction, the human experience. AI will never take that away. Gary Vee says that in a couple of years from now, you're probably going to be paying people just to walk with you and talk with you because everybody is on a screen, right? So I think that
You build
interaction.
you build communities online, and you find like-minded people, and you have study groups, and you can do the exact same thing that you would do in a classroom.
And you can make up your own degree. And you just get a little Sharpie.
I'm just saying,
maybe a little calligraphy. And you're good to go.
I went to college, and I'm just saying, I think the notion of it with the technology is becoming something of a very expensive dinosaur.
At the end of the day, I think that having professors use and be more proficient in grading and various other things like that, making sure what they're teaching is the right thing, and then going deep into theory and deep into all the other things that they need to do, I think that's important because other than that, now you're going out talking to like-minded people, but these people don't have a degree who necessarily is talking to you. Maybe they're not available. The professors are there to show up every single day and teach you life experience aligned with this education.
I don't think they teach you life experience.
So bottom line
I don't think they teach you life experience. I could go on.
Damon, I'm done arguing with him. Listen, we're talking to people who are, for whatever reason, have decided they are going to school. And the bottom line,
I'm trying to encourage them.
We just ruined the entire country.
Yeah, thanks so much for being with us, man. We'll see you next time.
You got it, guys.
Oh, God.
Was he just drinking a big glass of Curacao?
What is that?
Liqueur? Nah, probably not.
Nah, probably not. We're going to take a break.
Right, so when we come back, Jeff Bezos and Lawrence Sanchez head over to Cannes, or at least that's what a lot of people thought. You will see the lookalikes who tried to fool the media. Is that the lookalike or is that the real? Oh, no. Well, the festivities are beginning over in Cannes, and we expect to see certain celebrities there every year. So maybe that's why someone thought, well, Jeff Bezos and Lawrence Sanchez will definitely be there. Plus, Lauren was just in Paris.
Right, with Kim.
With Kim, so, and Katy Perry. So it would make sense that she's down in Cannes. Well, that's probably what some imposters had in mind when they showed up for an event, posed for photos.
If you were just like walking by, you would think it's them.
Nope.
Really?
No.
Well, You know Lauren well.
It's just a bald guy in shades.
No,
come on, Charles.
Come on, Charles.
That is spot on. I feel like
Lauren
probably is very offended by this. I would guess that she's like, oh, that woman looks nothing like me. But dude, Charles,
they should have cast a little better for. All right, the Jeff, I get it. You think you can just get away with a bald guy and put shades on him?
Totally.
The woman does not
You would
look
totally
anything
buy it.
like
I
Lauren.
would buy it.
She's got black hair.
Okay, so what? She can dye her hair.
See anything different?
Okay.
See any difference between the imposter and the real Lauren?
Charles.
But they got a lot of attention, and the interesting thing is that Lauren actually is supposed to go to Cannes at some point, and if they run into each other, I mean, that'd be a great photo.
Yeah, because then it'll be obvious how much she doesn't.
Hi, Gloria, New Jersey. Thanks to TMZ for letting me see these doppelgangers. I've actually never seen this couple before, and they're actually, to me, they're almost kind of spot on.
See?
Oh,
Gloria. Come on.
Wait, what's the difference? I don't see the.
Really, Devin?
Yeah, what's the difference?
You don't
Charles?
see any difference?
What's the difference, Charles?
I think
Charles
pretty sure
hasn't.
Devin.
Charles hasn't noticed the woman's face.
I'm pretty sure.
We're
Devin,
the ones who are saying there isn't a difference. You're the one that's saying there's a difference.
There is.
What else do you guys want to talk about?
My name's Derek Lackland, coming from the Bay Area. I want to talk about Diddy and this new angle that they got going on about talking about his mental health. I guess in the trial they're saying that he's bipolar. That's not an excuse for all the freak off activity, but you know what I'm saying? It might be a reason why he's doing it. He might need some help, but at the same time, he still needs to suffer the consequences of what's going on, man. This is really crazy what's going on, how he got just the whole world around that situation.
This whole bipolar thing, I got to say, if there's an easy way for the prosecution to even knock that down, there's an interview, we looked this up this morning, there's an interview that Diddy did with Playboy back in the day at some point, and he said, people think I'm bipolar, I'm not. I have seen a therapist, but it's mostly for like relationship stuff, but he's the one who says people think I'm bipolar, and then he says I'm not.
That therapist did not do a good job.
Yes, because he said he was seeing the therapist
I know,
for relationship
that did not
stuff.
do a good job.
No.
One more.
How you guys doing? My name is Drew, and I'm from Atlanta. And I wanted to go over the Justin Bieber and the Diddy situation from that kind of angle. And I completely understand wanting to know all the details of what happened between the two and just being cautious for Justin in general. But I think that if the sources closest to Justin are explicitly telling us that Justin was never abused, then we shouldn't be dwelling on it, because that just takes away from the people who really did suffer from the things that Diddy did.
Yeah, that's exactly what they said.
Yeah.
Exactly what they said. Okay, we're taking a break.
All right, when we come back, I'll show you the money. I'm gonna show you the money. Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding Jr. reunited after more than... I don't know what you thought was gonna happen, but we'll see the reunion
Why
when
are
we
you
come
doing
back.
Cuba Gooding Jr.?
I can't believe you didn't do the show me the money routine. Like, do you not remember how it goes?
I remember exactly. Show me the money.
But pick up the phone and we'll do it.
Okay,
We'll just
we're
reenact
not
it.
going to do that. We got a minute.
Cuba Gooding Jr. and Tom Cruise have reunited, and it went down in the south of France. They are over at Cannes, and it's been almost 30 years.
You know
I
what's
believe.
really weird?
Yeah, nearly 30 years.
When you look at the two of them, they have aged really well.
Pretty well?
Both of them.
Yeah. Yes, they both have.
I mean, they have.
Just gonna leave it at that.
Okay, we'll leave it.
But yeah, come on, everyone. It is one of those moments. He was there to receive the Global Short Film Award, a career achievement. Tom is there pushing Mission Impossible.
How long have we worked together?
A long time.
A long time.
20-something years.
Why is it that I literally figured out the entire conversation that you didn't want to just say, but I just went through my head so I know exactly what you were saying?
Uh-huh. One of them is that it doesn't crack.
Well, that was one of them. And there was another.
And we're not saying
but we're
it,
out of
part of
time.
it.